Dark Spectre Designworks. We make it. Howdy, folks. Today we're going to be taking a look at my Masters of the Universe Revelations / Classics / I guess you can put whatever the fuck you want on here. Castle Grayskull diorama. Yeah, I'm probably never going to be able to get the Classics Grayskull, which is really cool, but also goes for stupid amounts of money. So, and the Origins one really won't work. So I said, what the hell? I'm going to make my own. Plus, this is going in a very specific area, so it kind of has to be to a certain size, shape, and design. Starting off here, we're going to take a look at the making the skull part of Castle Grayskull. I'm just using XPS foam, which is my go-to material. Very easy to work with, carve, etc. I'm just trying to get the basic shape here. I'm going to go over it with some milliput to make the more intricate designs. And just mixing up the milliputs. And with this stuff, if you mix it with a little bit of water, it becomes much more malleable. Malleable. It becomes much easier to work with. You just want to gently caress it. It works really well if you're nice and gentle with it, like a lady. Some ladies like it rough, I guess, but just getting my fingers nice and wet. Again, just like the ladies. No, not in my experience, but yeah, just trying to make the shape around the eyes, the eye holes. The stuff isn't like quite as easy to work with as like a normal clay. Unfortunately, if I made this out of clay, I wouldn't be able to bake it because the foam would just simply melt. Here I'm just making the teeth. Same exact process. Got the basic shape of the foam and using a Dremel to make them a little bit more rounded. And finishing up with some hand sanding. Now I'm going to go in with some more milliput to fill in the, I'm sure it has a, that part of the skull has a name, but basically where your teeth grow out of has a distinct shape, so I wanted to try to replicate that. Gentle caress. Just using an X-Acto and some tinfoil to add some stony, rocky texture and some growth lines and such. Here I'm working on the little windows on the towers, or spires, whatever they're called. And here I'm just working on the door. I was thinking about making this openable, but that wouldn't be too complex, but I decided to scrap that idea and just make it a faux piece. Checking to make sure the size is correct. Good to go. And I'm just putting in the, they look like planks of wood. And using an X-Acto, hitting it with some heat to open up those lines to make it look like wood grain. Here I'm just making the supports for the spires. Trying to figure out how exactly would be the best way to do this, and I just ended up making a bunch of little half circles and using some foam board foam with no paper stretched over and worked really well. And here's the progress so far. I made those risers off camera, but they're boxes, so didn't really feel like those were very interesting. And then here I'm just working on the teeth for the bottom part. I was watching the 2000X series, and there's teeth coming up from the bottom, so I figured, why not? And unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of footage of me doing these. My original idea was just to carve the negative space of the cobblestones into the foam and be done. It was not really working out too well, so I decided to just cut them all out individually, which was a very annoying and tedious process, but end results have a much more three-dimensional effect than what I was aiming to achieve just carving it out. Basically, all I did for these was to cut random shapes, you know, the circular, I don't even know what you want to call these things. I'm sure they have some sort of geometrical name, but cobblestone shapes out of foam board. I use the cheap stuff from the dollar store for stuff like this. The paper peels off really easily, because obviously the paper is not going to work too well with this. And, you know, just fit it together like a puzzle. And to give a more three-dimensional effect, I did sand all the edges before gluing them on, which was another pain in the butt. For the floor, I just wanted to do a brick pattern. It was basically just a big grid. This is when something like a speed square comes in really, really handy. I just marked the little lines. I think these are 2 inches by 1 inch. Then just, you know, drew the long straight lines first, and then went back and did every other line at 2 inches for the bricks. I kind of wish I did like I did with the cobblestones and cut out all the bricks individually, but that would have been like, I don't know, 1,000 bricks or something like that. Probably not that many, but hundreds of bricks. And yeah, you know, I gotta get these projects out as fast as I possibly can. Else I'm gonna be sitting on one project for 6 months. So I decided to just make a grid pattern and then carve out the lines. In here I'm just using various tools, trying to experiment what's going to work best. Unfortunately, foam has a grain, just like wood and other products, so it tends to skip a bit. But ideally I would have used a wood burning tool to carve the lines. Unfortunately, it's very, very noxious, and one of my favorite things to use is any sort of a sealer, and it also works really well with anything like rocky texture, is a mixture of wood filler, Mod Podge, and a little bit of water. This will act as a sealer. It will also act as glue. So I used hot glue to stick all these cobblestones and pretty much everything down. That's not the best method to use, but adding this will help tremendously. It's going to get underneath, it's going to get into all the cracks and crevices. It's going to act as a glue. And then for the rocky texture, you just got to play with the ratios of your wood filler, Mod Podge, water ratio. Basically, the less Mod Podge and water that you add, the thicker it will be. And I thought I got this on camera, and I did not. I apologize. But what you want to do with a thicker texture is kind of like pat it on there, if that makes any sense. So you get little peaks and valleys, and then you go back in and sand it. And when you go in to sand it, and you sand off those peaks and valleys, you're left with a lot of crevices and cracks, and looks just like rock. There's other ways to achieve this texture, but I figure this way kind of adds three-dimensionality to it. And like I said, it also acts as a sealer slash primer slash glue, because this mixture soaks up paint like a sponge, which is a good and bad thing. But as you can see here, I'm going to start off with a very dark greenish blue. I'll throw the paint that I used on here. It was a pretty damn good close match for that weird tealish, aquamarine-ish green that Castle Grayskull is. And this is pretty watered down. This is the darker version of that paint. Watering it down because I want to getting all the cracks and crevices. And what was kind of cool is that the yellowish, beigeish color of the my little sealing mixture of wood filler, Mod Podge, and water kind of comes through sometimes in certain spots because this is such a watery base coat. And I think it works just to add some dimensionality. Man, I can't fucking say these weird words. Dimensionality to the paint, so it's not just green, you know. And I did end up doing like 2 coats of this. First one dried very, very translucent, which is fine, but I wanted it a little darker. Yeah, just slather it on, and I did not wipe anything off, so. And then I just for the finishing coats, I just used a bunch of different shades of dry brushing. Started out with the base color of the paint, and then added some white to it, and went back in with some darker shades. And this is a super easy process. Just put very, very, very little paint on the brush and gently kiss it. This is going to bring out all the texture and all the highlights. Just think wherever, you know, light would be hitting. And this is a makeup brush. First time I'm using this. I've seen other YouTubers use them, and they're quite nice for dry brushing. It's very, very soft. I did add some lights into the windows. I had some flickering flame effect LEDs left over from my Hydra Stomper build. Link up in the upper right corner if you'd like to check that out. So I figured, yeah, what the hell. Things are always cool with lights in them, so... I've said this before, I'm not an electronics guy. I'm not a big fan of messing with them. You do some really cool stuff, it's just it's a pain in the butt, so... But just use those lights and added some resistors and some wiring, and then ran them to an old USB cable. That's about all she wrote for the build process. Enjoy some finished pictures / videos, gallery style here for you. Thank you very much for watching. Have a fan-freaking-tastic day. Like, comment, subscribe, Patreon, all that stuff, if you would be so kind. Whoa!